Hey, man, I'm looking forward to getting into the music. Thank you for taking a minute out today.
Oh, no problem. I enjoy these.
Yeah. So before we get into the new album, I want to know this. 6 years ago, this pandemic changed so much about our lives and what we're doing. How did you get through that era, and how has it influenced the way that you live and create today?
Um, it was weird. I'm in Austin,
Yeah.
so everything opened up here differently. Everything closed down differently. New York was a complete New York, LA, Chicago, all those places, a complete different scene
Yeah.
than what we had. Um, so I didn't do any. I just wasn't really into the online stuff, so I didn't do a bunch of that. I just kind of, you know, played a bit, practiced, worked on stuff. Um, had a lot more time to do that. But then, like I said, things opened up a lot quicker in Texas.
Yeah. Yeah. So let's talk about the brand new album, ATX Rhythm. Kind of give me an idea of what was the vision for this. How does this album feel?
So my record company, who's owned by Kabir Segal, who's a great producer, Grammy Award winning. He did the recent thing with the Dalai Lama, the spoken word thing, and they won that Grammy this year. He was like, "You're from Texas. Why don't you do a Texas album?" And so I wasn't really into it at first, uh, to tell you the truth. But then, you know, I started to, you know, develop the project and think about what it is that I wanted to be represented from my interactions as a musician living in Texas, and how the music in Texas has influenced me, since I've been here since, 2006 when I first moved. And so it's really kind of an album of Texas music, but also music that I'm kind of more personally influenced by.
And Austin's gone through a complete transformation. There's been a large influx. It's become kind of the new capital of the world. How much of living in Austin has infused the way that you look at music and make it?
Oh, a whole bunch, yeah. I kind of consider Austin the place where I developed into the musician I am now. I'm originally from South Carolina, so
Okay.
the home of Dizzy,
Yeah.
and so I always say at best I'll be the second most well-known trumpet player from South Carolina. Uh, but when I moved here, the town's real inviting. You could sit in with a lot of different people. Not a lot of jazz going on. Still not as much as say Chicago or New York or anything like that, or New Orleans. But I was surprised at how much country music, singer songwriters, all that stuff that I kind of shied away from most of my life has influenced me since I've been here.
Wow.
And just getting to know those people personally, like just meeting, Willie Nelson, meeting Lyle Lovett, you know, um, Charlie Sexton, just being associated in a more direct way where they know my music and I know their music. It just changed things.
Yeah. So what with the new album, I'm curious with ATX Rhythm, what are you hoping the listener gets from this project?
I'm hoping that they hear my interpretations of songs that they've heard, that they get a different interpretation of something that is familiar to them, and also get an idea of where I'm coming from as a player, as a musician. And of
So
course, on the original stuff, just for them to have a glimpse of the great Ruth Carter and her ability to produce lyrics.
Yeah. So take me back to your roots in South Carolina. How did the trumpet become your instrument? How did this career take off? Why was it music?
When I asked for a saxophone from my parents, they brought home a trumpet. That's how I got started.
That's it. Happy
That that
accident.
was that was it. That was it. Yeah. I could, form a note right off and had an embouchure without anybody teaching me, um, which I didn't know at the time, but is highly unusual. I've done quite a bit of teaching over the years, and it is highly unusual for someone to pick up a trumpet and actually make a noise out of it, let alone get a decent note right off.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much how I started. As far as the career, that really took off when I moved to Austin,
Yeah.
um, because I was able to tap into a whole, just infrastructure that just wasn't there in South Carolina. I did, had bands and played there, but just the access to a different level of musicians and musicianship, this huge number, was everything's bigger. And then, of course, uh, I was married at the time, and my ex was working as a publicist for some bands, and she started working for me, basically pro bono. And she was able to develop a career while developing my career. Just getting press, I was on the cover of the Chronicle in the first 3 years that I was here. That's the weekly, which was unheard of. And at the same time, I was um, getting a lot of radio and television here locally, and Statesman did a big article. So it kind of all blew up at once. And then from there, I met some people, um, Turk and Christy Pipkin, kind of introduced us to uh, more of the countryside. So I got to meet a lot of those people um, on that end, and singer-songwriters that just I wouldn't have had access to. That really helped a lot, I think, in just developing outside of the limited jazz community.
So early on, who were some players you emulated, albums you listened to?
Oh, Miles, obviously,
Yeah.
big one. Miles Dizzy, when I heard Clifford Brown, that was life changing. I think it is for most people.
Yeah.
Um, I got a chance to talk to Lou Donaldson a couple of times because he just had his phone number on his website, and so I just called him up one day, and because I knew some players that moved to New York that had hung out with him and talked with him, so I called him up and tried to get him to come down to be in my 1950s Miles Davis tribute, and Lou's Lou's real funny. Well, he
Yes.
was.
Yes.
But he told me, he said, and he had this funny voice. He'd be, first time Miles Davis heard Clifford Brown, he locked himself in his house, stayed there for a whole week.
Man, he had a voice for the ages. I have never heard a voice like that in my whole life.
I know. And I said, Lou, that might have just been a natural reaction to hearing Clifford Brown for the first time.
Wow. You know, I'm curious, what was the first live show that you saw? The first live jazz show you saw that blew you
Oh,
away?
the first live show that I saw, a jazz show, was when I was in elementary school. And we got on this bus. I didn't know. No, I don't think anybody knew where we were going. We got on this bus, went to the Carolina Coliseum. That was where they played basketball and stuff. And all the big shows, Earth, Wind, and Fire would come through there. Elvis when he came through. He played there, and they loaded us up. I think it was there. It was either there or the township. I can't remember now. But we went there, sat down, and Dizzy Gillespie was doing a show for the school kids, basically. It was a free show that he did periodically. He'd come to the Capitol and do this show. And that was the first time I'd ever heard any live jazz. I
Wow.
think that was probably the first live show that I went to, period.
Wow. So, what do you look forward to the most about being a professional musician? What do you like the best about it? Every day you get up, you get to create. What do you look forward to?
Um, Coming up with a melody that's gonna stick, that's gonna be around, or that you know creates a feeling in somebody, when they hear it. I always like melodies that are fairly simple. Like in Bob, there's a whole bunch of different melodies. For me, the ones that appeal to the most people are the ones that you can remember the most. I mean, everybody loves Confirmation, right? When they hear that, but for me, my favorite Bird tune is Little Suede Shoes,
Yeah.
which is a simple melody, but it's more impactful for me, uh, and I love playing that tune. Doing different stuff with it, and well, I always try to write something that. Well, actually, I don't try most of the time. Mostly, it just comes to me. But the ones that I keep and try to develop into tunes are the ones that are melodic enough to kind of translate past traditional jazz.
So you represent this bridge from the old world. I mean, just seeing Dizzy early on in your life and the musicians you played with, you and a lot of the younger players that are coming around right now, you're that bridge between the old and the new world. What's encouraging to you about the evolution of jazz? I often wonder what Miles would think if he came back and saw where jazz is in 2026. But for you, what do you think? Where we're at and how this art form is evolving?
Because of a couple of different things. One is just the internet. When I was trying to learn how to play, I was lucky enough to have access to a great music store, Papa Jazz, still there in Columbia, South Carolina. That's where I got my first Miles Davis record. And then the owner was so knowledgeable about every single record that he got in the store. I could just go ask him about different stuff. And then a great public radio station that mostly classical, but had jazz at different times, especially on the weekends. The first time I learned about the Chicago Jazz Festival was hearing it on my public radio station while it was live. So these days, all you got to do is type in something and bam, it's there. You got access to almost everything that's ever been recorded at your fingertips. So that's really encouraging to me. When I hear and I hear I go jam sessions and stuff here, hear a lot of younger players, a lot of good players out there, a lot of people interested in the music. I think more people, because of that, because of the internet, are interested in jazz because they'll hear it and they may not know what they're hearing or fully recognize it, but they've grown up hearing it, you know, like Blues Clues, right? Because, I've got a daughter, she's in her 20s now, but when she was little, she liked to listen to Blues Clues,
Huh?
right?
Yeah.
And there's jazz all over that.
Uh-huh.
Um, Dora the Explorer, right? They throw jazz into that jazz has been, there was a time when pretty much every theme in television was jazz.
Yeah.
Bewitched, right?
Mhm.
I Dream of Jeannie,
Yeah.
all Dick Van Dyke Show, right? And then it stopped. And then so like at some point in time, it kind of snuck back in. And getting those sounds early is kind of what connects people to the music later on.
Yeah, for sure. Why do you love this art form we call jazz?
Uh, it's spontaneous composition. I mean, you can do it with other art forms, but it's just not the basis. I mean, to create sound instantaneously over a set of patterns, a set of changes, chord structures. But you are continuously moving towards some new development, new idea, new way of doing it. There's nothing that approaches that in music for me.
Yeah. So at the end of the day, Jeff, everyone has a perception of you. Family, friends, fans, everyone on the bandstand, everyone that knows you, that you run the show. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
One of the things that I do musically is try to consolidate or make everything gel um, on the bandstand, from that perspective. A lot of times when you go somewhere, you go to hear somebody, or if I'm sitting in, or, I'll hear music as like segments, right? So I'll hear a bass player and a drummer and a keyboard player. And when it's really happening how it's supposed to, it's one rhythm section. It's uh, one thing with different parts working together. When it's not, you're hearing an individual bass player, individual drummer, individual keyboard player or guitar player. And for me, the soloist job when they're doing what they're supposed to do is to bring all that together and form it into a unit that's everyone's basing everything off of everything else, but also what you're playing. They're listening to you, and they're listening to you because of what you're playing, how you're playing it, what your intentions are. I'm always intending something when I'm playing. It's not just I'm trying to get a melody. I'm trying to get a effect, a feeling. Like when I play a ballad, unless it's my ballad that I wrote,
Yeah.
you know, I'm always thinking about, okay, how did Sarah do this? How did Ella do this one? How did Carmen do this one? How did Joe do this? How is Jimmy Rushins approaching this tune? So for me, trumpet playing is a lot like singing, um, in both the way that we do it because we're using syllables when we're playing, um, um, and then getting that effect to where, like, when I'm playing a tune that everyone knows, I want them to hear the words when I'm playing it.
Yeah.
I want them to feel like they're listening to a singer.
Yeah. So ATX Rhythm is the new album. If anybody wants to get a copy of it, I know it's streaming, but if anybody wants to get a copy or catch you live, any of the other good business in your world, where can they go?
You can just go to my website, jefflofton.com.
Okay.
You can contact me from there, and I can mail a copy to anybody that wants to fork up the dollars and the postage costs.
Okay. I will put all of those links in the show notes. Jeff, this has been a joy. Thank you, sir. Thank you for taking a minute out today. I really appreciate it. Best of luck on the release.
Thank you, Joe. Anytime. It was a pleasure.
Yes, sir.
Neon Jazz.